Okay, I'm going to start working on getting those needles done, and I needed a way to hold the screws to drill a hole, put the needle, or put the needle, solder the needle in the end, plus get the screw to the correct length. So I'm just making a little, basically it's 5/16 diameter, and I drilled and tapped the hole and all the way through it so I can thread my screw through it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a jeweler's saw and I'm going to slit through with the one side all the way of it. I'm going to go put it in the vise, cut through it all the way on one side, and on the opposite side just cut almost all the way through so that it can act like a collets, so I can screw my screw in there and put it in a 5C collet and chucker and clamp the screw without damaging the threads, and then I can face it to length and drill a hole in the end so that I can get the needle in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the mill, and in order to cord to my camera was stuck around the grinding table. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to clamp it in the vise, just sticking out on the edge here. Get my vise out of here. Just going to clamp it, lightly clamp it on the edge here like that. It doesn't have to be real tight because that slitting saw doesn't put a whole lot of pressure on it. And take out this chalk. And put this in. And plus it's I'm going to move it over there, and it's not real critical that it's on the slot is on the center line. It'd be nice if it was. So I'll just eyeball it close. I'll eyeball it close to it, and it'll be good enough. I can take and I'll put a scale in it and get the center, or close to the center. There's talk on the board about centering tool height setting on the lathe, and I personally use my scale, and it comes out so close that, and it also works for things like this here if you can get if you have enough room to get scale in. I don't have enough room on this. I know, I'll use my fishtail. I'll use my little fishtail, shorter than the scale, and then what I'll do is I'll just put it in here and crank over to touch it and kind of pinch it in between, and then look at it and see whether it's sitting vertical. If it's leaning away from the spindle at the top, I just crank the table up a little bit, and it'll lean inward then, or straighten out anyway, and it looks pretty good right there. So, what was that? So it's set up here. Let's lower you down a little bit. There we go. And so it should be set right there. Start the spindle up. I'm not going to take it all in one cut. These little slitting saws are a little bit on the fragile side if you take too heavy a cut. I'm getting a strange noise here. I'm not sure why. Oh, I have a couple of teeth loaded up. That's why. You can usually hear when I should have had a little coolant on that. Plus, I need to go a little slower RPM here. It's a little much for that. Slow her down a couple notches here. I don't have a variable speed. I have pulleys, step pulleys. So I changed the belt. And we'll take and dab a little oil on that too. Okay, that's through on one side. Oop. So I'll flip it around, and I'll only go part way through. I won't go all the way through because I just want to make area where that can bend and close up on the thread without a whole lot of force. I could probably get by without putting anything in it, but it's better if you define, you cut a slot in there and define the spot that it's going to bend. So I will do the same thing here. I just want to make sure. Going through this effort, I might as well get her close. Oh yeah, I can see that I gotta drop down a little bit. And right about there. That looks good. Okay. Actually could go a little bit even slower than this. Go about halfway through it, maybe a little more. That should do her. And now I'll take and I'll run the tap back through it to clean up the threads on it, and then it should be ready to face off my screws and yeah, my tripod's giving me being a pain here. I'm still sniveling with that cold. I just can't shake it. I don't know. But anyway, I should be able to just take it and run the tap through it again. Kind of just to make knock off the burr that we went through there and created when we did the slot. Okay, so now I'm ready to clamp the screw up and go back over to the lathe and basically face the ends to the right length. I want to get them close. Again, it's really not all that critical. the main thing I wanted it for was to drill that hole. I want that hole centered on about those threads, so that was the main reason why I made this little thing. So I will go and work on that. Okay, I got the screws to length. I kind of strayed from the plans again. Instead of using cap screws, I use pan head screws, and then I turn the head of the screw down, and to make it look more like a traditional metering screw. But anyway, I'm over on the CNC now. I've got one of them clamped up in 5C chucker collet, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to dial that in. And the only reason I'm over on the CNC is because I have 6,000 RPM over here versus only 3 on. I got double the RPM on this machine. I'm not going to NC anything. I'm just going to use it with my finger chuck, and I'm going to go ahead and poke the 39 thousandths hole in it, and then from there I will go and solder it. So the first thing I got to do is dial in my little plug that I made to hold the screw and get that centered under the spindle. So I will go ahead and set you up here and then go ahead and dial that in. There we go. All right, so I'll put the indicator in and bring that up. Zero over there. About 7 thousandths out, so need to go down to 7. Should be close there. 0, 0, and I'll put this on 0, and we'll be set to go. 0, 0, 0. Okay, all zeroed out there, so we're centered. There. Put my finger chuck in there. These finger chucks come in really handy, especially drilling small holes. I probably could trust the but I like to have the feel of it when I get down to something that small. I like to be able to feel, what's going on with it. So I'm going to spot it with a center drill first. Raise her up. Okay, so is just a little spot there for the drill, so the drill won't walk away and take its own path, a path of least resistance or something. And now I'm going to crank it down to all the way to the bottom of the stroke of the finger chuck, and then I'm going to crank it up till it just touches right there, and then I'm going to go up. It's supposed to be about 250 deep, so 100. 250. So that's where I want to be. That's where the depth that I'm going to be at. So, and normally I just use record coolant, but being these small drills, I put a little Molly D on it. close. Okay, I think I'm there. That's the depth. Okay, so we got that out of the way. I will do the other one, and then I'll come back and it's going to be a trick soldering them, and I'll cut the needle off, and I got to cut the needle off at 500 thou long, and then I will come back when I'm doing that, and then when I'm getting ready to solder. Okay, I got them both drilled, and I'm sitting at the bench here. I'm going to cut off the needles and solder the needle in place here. So I'm gonna see if I can get you a shot. Okay, so see if you can kind of see it. You can kind of see what I'm working on here. All right. So first thing I want to do is cut the needle off. And here's the screw. You can see that the head of it. It's like well, it's more like a regular screw in the carburetor, but it's a pan head screw, and I just turned down the head of it to the major diameter of the thread. So anyway, okay, so I'll set my caliper at 500, and I will just make a black mark on it with my magic marker here. Magic. Okay, so I just want to cut on the outside of that black line, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Dremel tool here and kind of hold it, find my black mark, and I got a little part off blade in that Dremel tool. Okay, I got the black mark, and I'm just going to cut on the outside of that black mark. Ooh, a little warm. Not too bad though. Okay, and then I'm just going to take and knock the edge off of it a little bit. Alright, so we got the needle. Now, I want to take and I want to clean that hole out a little bit. I got a toothpick here. Just try to wipe some of that. If there's any moly, make sure that there's no Molly D down in there. Wipe it out. It looks pretty clean. And I got some flux here. I'm put a little dab of flux on the end of my toothpick here and tuck it down in the hole. Okay. Got a little bit down in that hole. I want to make sure I wipe off the outside. I don't want the solder drawn out to the threads. So I just kind of wipe it with my fingers here. Alright. So, next thing is I want just a little dab of solder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the solder here and I'm just going to cut off probably about 100 thou or less of solder. Just a little speck right there. And try to pick that up like that. I don't know if you can see it, it's balancing on my X-Acto knife, and then I'm going to try to tuck that down into that hole. There we go. That went pretty good. Alright, and take the needle, just wipe it with some flux on the on the diameter there, and then put it down into that hole. Now the flux is down in the bottom of that now. Just want to make sure that I keep the flux wiped away from where I don't want that solder to go. Okay. I've used this little clamp for various things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck that screw in there just to hold the screw upright. And Allen wrench. Tighten that up a little bit. Just like that. I'm getting an awful lot of glare on. I don't know if that's any better. I turned the light above out. Okay, so now I'm going to take the torch. I'm just going to lay the X-Acto knife on the top so it doesn't come out, and I'm going to heat up the needle with the torch until I feel the solder, until I feel that needle drop. Right there. It just dropped a little bit. Let it cool off, and it should be soldered in place. Loosen this up, take it out of there and see. Very good. The solder didn't even it just come flush out to the end. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's pretty small, but there's no solder that came out on the threads at all, and the needle is soldered in place. Okay, well, this one is done. I will do the next one and get them installed, and then I'll work on the air screw. That'll be the next screw, and then the carburetors will be done. Well, I take that back. They won't be done because I still have to do the control lever, the linkage lever, which as soon as I get this done, I'm going to write a little program for my CNC machine and quick whittle those out of a solid piece of not sure. I'll probably make them out of aluminum. I was thinking about going with brass, but nah, aluminum will be fine. Anyway, I will come back when I'm working on the air screws. Okay, I'm back over at the lathe now, and I'm going to put my screws into the little holder again, and so they're sticking out on the end, and I'm going to cut that 15 thou degree point on the end of these screws. So I'm going to have to adjust my compound to 15 degrees off of parallel. So we'll clamp that up and get the wrench to loosen these up. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to move my so there's parallel, and I want a 15 degree. And what I'm going to do, well, I could do it either way. I think I'm going to do it on the back side, run the spindle in reverse. That way I can use a boring bar. So I will set it at 15 degrees here. It is 15, right? Yep, 15 degrees. And tighten that down into place. And back side here. Okay. And then I'm going to use a boring bar is what I'm going to do. So turn that around here. Set my get up here. goes. Okay, so basically I'm just setting my boring bar parallel with the spindle. Okay, so back that off. Look in here. Yeah, and you're not being able to see any of it. Okay, I'll move you around here. Not really a good spot to see any of it unless I hold it by hand, and it's kind of hard to do. Come on, focus on that. I don't know why it's not wanting to focus on stuff. It's kind of focused there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the spindle in reverse. So here we go. Actually, I'm going to kick up the RPM to 14 again. I turned it down when I was, so that's A2. That's better. Oh, just about messed up. I was running the spindle the wrong way, and I'm on the back side. I got to roll it out. That should do it. So now take that out of there and check it. Let me see. There's a little bit of a flat, probably about a 20 thou flat on the end of it, but I think that's fine. On the drawing it does show a little bit of a flat anyway. It isn't calling it out, but it does show a little bit of a flat. And I'm thinking it'll be just fine. If I can get it unthreaded out of my collar here, kind of mush the, where you cut the angle, it's kind of mushes the threads over a little bit. So it's a little tough to get it out of the little holder, but the little holder is straightening the threads back out also. So even though it's aluminum, it still is going to act like a die. Granted, not a very good die, but it will straighten the threads out somewhat. And basically, you kind of want the threads to be a little bit snug in the carburetor anyway, so it doesn't vibrate out and move around on you when you're showing your engine, when it's running. Right? Okay, so I have it out. Got it out, and I'm going to take and well, they're both over on my bench over here. Okay, I'm just going to make sure that it fits in there and bottoms out. Now if I can find where I laid my little screwdriver. No, here it is. Alright, turns in there nice. And bottoms out just about exactly where I want it to, so that's going to work out really good. So I can do the next one. And I also have to do the fuel nipple, you know, the little brass nipple for the fuel line. So that's what I'll probably do next after I get done with this. I will do the next one, and when I'm working on the little brass nipple, I'll come back, because I'm going to be doing some single pointing on that. I don't have a die, 256 die, so I'm going to single point those threads. So I'll come back when I'm doing that.